Hello everybody, this is Gregory with 5 Minute Catholic Apologetics, where 5 minutes of your time make it to the divine. Today I'm going to retrospect and introspect about my experiences in Italy and how it relates to my faith. Now before we begin, let's start with a prayer. Nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen. Gloria Patri et Filii et Spiritui Sancto, secutora in principio et nunc et semper et saecula saeculorum. Amen. If by any chance you're not watching this video in chronological order, I'll put some of the banner notes for the videos I did. I probably did 8 when I was in Italy, and I just wanted to talk about it, and I tangentially talked about it perhaps in the video, how Europe is a mission territory now, and perhaps a little when I talked about how the Italian priest refused to give me the Eucharist because I wanted to receive it on the tongue. But I couldn't help but leaving Europe a little sad, and because every Catholic knows what the faith is like now in Europe, the large majority of Europe. There are pockets, of course, in every country that still has a vibrant community, and I would still say that there are parts of Poland that are very vibrant, and some other parts of Eastern Europe like Hungary, Slovakia, Czech Republic to a certain extent, and the Ukraine, in Lithuania. But as a whole, Western Europe has turned its back on not just Catholicism, but Christianity in general, and has embraced materialism and moral relativism and secularism and cultural Marxism and all the isms essentially that replace God. Because when you take God out of your life, you have to fill that void with something else. You have to fill it with something else. So some people fill it with veganism, but a lot of people will fill it with another ism, atheism, whatever it is. I can't lie and see that I was overrun with tourists during my time there, because we were there ironically during All Saints weekend, or All Saints Day, which fell on a Tuesday. So a lot of Europeans, and in particular the Italians, they took long weekends, so Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. And so Florence, for example, was overrun with Italian tourists, just tons of tourists, in addition to the regular tourists. But none of them were going in the churches. And I mean, look, there was a long line to go to the Duomo to see the Duomo. And look, I can't speak for everybody who goes into the Duomo every day, and I can't speak for the Asians who go there who are not Catholic, but my impression is that the large majority of them, I would love to know, like, what a typical European kind of, like, how they view going to these churches. Especially since they have this heritage of being Catholic. Their ancestors were Catholic. I mean, if you look at Italians, for essentially 2,000 years, more or less 1,700 years. So how do they, like, reconcile that? How do they, what excuses are they using for not practicing their faith? Is it the sex abuse scandal? Is it the church is too rich? Is it, I don't believe in the hocus pocus? Just, and again, Protestants, you can listen to this, and the same accusations are levied against your church. I mean, we know that the Protestants don't tend to have as much of the homosexual infiltration as the Catholic Church does, but they do tend to have the heterosexual scandals, like youth pastors and the pastor having an affair, mistress, and stuff like that. So look, it's just human nature. It's just why when you leave any faith because of scandal, well, then good luck finding an institution of religious or otherwise that doesn't have a scandal of some sort, because we're all fallen. We all have the sin of concupiscence. But I just find it interesting that the Italians all travel, but when you go to the churches, and we went to daily mass, or I should say I went to daily mass, they were empty. And so, and then you kind of augment that, or I guess exacerbate it by a priest who didn't want to give me the Eucharist because I was going to receive it the way we've at least been receiving it for the norm for 500 years. You can kind of see some evidence that prior to 1500 AD or so, that the standard was to receive it in your hand, depending on what part of Catholicism and where you were in the world. But after 1500, the powers that be were realizing that there was a lot of sacrilege that was occurring, either intentional or unintentional. You drop the host and so forth. So they changed it. But I just feel like it was just sad. The region of Europe is sad, and I am sure that when I was there, like with the Italian priest, they would probably think that they would never hazard that I was from America, just by looking at me. Not because I don't look American or anything like that, but I think most Europeans don't really think of America as the bastion of Catholicism, and it's not a bastion of Catholicism, but I would say that there's probably, we are maybe one generation ahead of Europe in terms of open border immigration issues, and certainly with the idea of religiosity. We're still more religious of a society than Western Europe is, but I think that we do have a little more vibrant Catholicism here. I mean, God, who doesn't compared to Europe? It's moribund beyond moribund there. So it's not, of course, making me question my faith. I just think it's sad. If you look at the actions of the German bishops, if you look at the actions of pretty much every country in Western Europe, if you look at the last 70 years since Vatican II, there's always been one country, whether it be French or English or Spanish, that has had modernist change agent cardinals that have made statements or have pushed liberation theology or something that's, I would say, antagonistic to the faith. And so we just have to pray for Europe and just pray for the situation it is, because you look at, like I mentioned about Venice. Venice has something like 40 churches and an island group that today only has 55,000 people. But if you do the math, you pretty much have a church every half mile. And these were churches that were full to the brim every Sunday because all the Venetians were Catholic and they all practiced their faith. And you go from that, or you talk about Rome, or talk about Cadiz, Spain, or talk about Toulouse, France, or talk about Prague, Czech Republic, or wherever you want to talk about, somewhere in Bavaria. There was always a point where the majority of their history, their churches, their Catholic churches, were full to the brim. And now, whether you're Catholic in Europe or you're evangelical in Europe or whatever you are, they've just turned their back. And it's sad. And what it also does too, though, is kind of emboldens my desire to try harder, to evangelize in whatever way I can, because we have a foe that's strong, and we know what's going to happen. Ultimately, we're going to be victorious. That being said, we have to fight. And I've talked about this in a video here, how Catholics and Protestants must unite against a common foe, and that common foe is poaching off both Protestants and Catholics, and that is militant atheism, secularism, whatever you want to call it, cultural Marxism. And we need to work together in concert to repel this and to bring religion back to the public forum. The politicians always want to say, oh, you can't bring religion in. No, we need to reassert it, because the country's gone to crap. I have an early episode about, does America deserve a chastisement for its support of abortion for all these decades? And this country needs Christians, Catholic Christians, Protestant Christians, to reassert themselves. If not, we're going to end up like Europe. Guys, post in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Hit the notification, subscribe, and share button. Until next time, take care. God bless and pray.